I need some traction. You need some traction.
Right. Hey folks, Lloyd Lobo here, co-founder at Boast AI and Traction. Today's Traction webinar is brought to you by Boast AI Launch Academy in partnership with Growth Blazers. I have a chat question here, zooming in from Canada, Jess from Memory KPR. Folks, feel free to introduce yourself like Jess just did. Introduce to everyone, click the everyone button in the chat and tell us where you're tuning in from. I am in Austin this week. Maria, where are you tuning in from?
I'm in San Francisco.
Awesome. Yeah, I was in San Francisco for 10 years and just moved to Austin. We got people from Lacona is from Johannesburg, Costa Rica, Palo Alto, London, Toronto, Saskatoon.
Right. Pure
wow,
Vida.
Brazil. This is international. This is, Miss International Maria is here with us. Awesome, folks. Awesome. So, excited for this topic. As I said in the email that product led is one of the most popular buzzwords in the startup world today, right? But regardless, buzzword or not, you can't ignore the fact that the most successful tech IPOs and the fastest growing private SaaS companies are all product led. Zoom, Atlassian, Slack, Calendly, etc. But what is it? How do you build it? What frameworks and tactics to consider? So Maria here is Director of Product Growth at Ancestry, and prior to that, she was at Lyft and Opencare and was a VC. So lots and lots of experience, over 10 years experience working on growth and customer marketing programs. And at Opencare, she was a part of a 3% growth team that grew revenue from zero to millions. So excited to have you here, Maria. How do I pronounce your last name?
Cuasay.
Cuasay. Awesome. Awesome. So you got this impressive background as a VC and a growth leader. How did you get into growth? Why transition from VC? Give us your backstory.
Yeah, I started off in venture capital. That was really like my first real job, but that was really by accident. I graduated during the Great Recession, so I couldn't find a job. And so I ended up in BDC venture capital, really not knowing what that is, but I was working in the mailroom. So I have like a very typical come from the mailroom type of story. So yes, I was working in the mailroom. I found out more about VC, investing in software companies, and I reached out to the partners there, and they helped me learn more about the VC business, what exactly it is, how you evaluate companies, how you network with founders and whatnot. And they eventually made me as an analyst, and then I stayed there for about 4.5 years. I eventually moved over to the operating world for a couple of main reasons. Like number one, it's really hard to become a partner. From being like an analyst to a partner in a VC firm, you really need to have that good network and good experience so you can add value to the companies and to the founders that you're working with. But also second, it didn't fit my personality. Like my personality, I'm very energetic, I'm very action oriented. I think one of the things that I noticed when I was in VC was whenever I was in a board meeting, I always wished that I would be the one presenting, rather be the board observer. I'm like, I prefer to be the one presenting. Like I want to be that operator. And so I moved over to the operating side, which is actually really, really hard. So when you're in VC, you're considered a generalist, right? But when you're moving into startups or in the tech industry, people are hiring for specialists. And so I was trying to sell myself as a specialist, but I was really a generalist. So I found it really, really hard. It took me like several months to get to the operating side. But long story short, there is this this founder of Opencare, co-founder of Opencare, Nick, who really liked me. He thought I would be a great fit for the company, but he didn't really know where to put me in. And so he took a chance on me and put me in growth. And so ever since then, I've always been in growth. I started off in growth marketing, so doing a lot of like paid marketing ads on Facebook, Instagram, Google search. And then I ended up doing referrals, which is more of a product-led growth. And then I moved over from Opencare to Lyft because they wanted someone to lead referrals. And then from Lyft, I went to Sprout Therapy, which is now called LME. And then now I'm here at Ancestry. So that's a bit of my backstory. Yeah.
lots of people from all over the world, from Switzerland to Ottawa, are listening into your story. So let's
Yeah.
dive into product led, right? So much buzz around it. Folks, if your company is product led, type one in the chat. If it's not product led and trying to get to product led, type two. Let's see how many product led companies are in here. Awesome.
Mm.
Cool. Cool, 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 cool. So let's dive into your definition of product led. What is product led growth? Is it right for every company?
Yeah, the best definition I heard of what product-led growth is that using product to get your next set of customers. All right. So for any company, you can be like marketing-led, you can be sales-led, you can be product-led, you can be anything, or maybe even a customer-driven, customer service-led. But if, let's say you're a marketing-led company, you are spending a lot of your focus and investment into marketing ads, right, to grow your business. But with product is like the main focus to get to that next set of your customers.
When does it make sense for companies, right? So you've looked at it, there's community-led now, which is a big wave. Boast is a community-led company.
Right.
But when does product-led make sense for a company? Because I see like there's a lot of companies that are sales-led organizations, and that's completely fine. You have an SDR, AE team, it's working. And then I talk to founders that have this product-led FOMO and want to switch because you need the right DNA, right? So when do you think, from your experience investing and then running product-led companies, is it right for every company? And if not, how do you sort of think about making that transition?
Yeah. So in the beginning, you'll probably start with one, and then at the end, when you're a much larger company, say an IPO, you have a portfolio of marketing-led, product-led, sales-led investments, right? So when you're in the beginning, first of all, you need customers. Where are they going to come from? So it's likely that a lot of companies are putting a lot of investment in paid marketing ads just to get that first set of customers. Like, you can't be a product-led growth company if you don't even have customers in the beginning, right? So that's really what product led is. It's like using your customer base right now and then using product on top of it to get those users to get new users in. But with marketing, you're like tapping into someone else's service, putting in money there to get customers to come in. So in the beginning, it's likely that you're going to be doing marketing led, unless you're so focused on SEO, for example. That's more of a product led growth channel. But it's likely that you'll start off with marketing or sales, really depending on your business. But as you grow, you can't, from what I've seen, you really can't just like have one, right? Like, so for example, Slack is like a perfect product-led growth company, right? It's extremely product-led growth, but now you're starting to see a sales team in Slack. You're also starting to see marketing ads. Like, I was watching the football playoffs all this weekend, and you see Slack ads everywhere in like the football playoffs. And so it would really depend, but first you'll probably have to start with one, but as you grow bigger, you're going to have to have a portfolio of everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. The first step is, as I look at it, startups are built in phases, right? First phase, validation, get like 10, 15 customers to pay you to try it out. Then product market fit, get that high retention, then product channel fit, figure out one repeatable, scalable channel. And then you're at a point of scale where you probably spend 75% scaling what you've nailed and spend a third of your time trying new things. It looks like a lot of people here are on product led, but equally people are probably sales led and trying to get into product led. So let's take the question somewhat differently. Let's say organization that's predominantly a sales led motion. How do you go into the product led realm? Like, what are some things you can do to launch a product led offering?
Yeah. Let me just expand on that question a little bit. I come more from like a B2C background. So I haven't worked in a B2B company before. So we'll need to balance like sales led and marketing led and how to become more product led. Yeah. So if you're starting off as like a marketing led or a sales led company and you want to start to expand into product led growth, you'll need to have that very, very strong partnership with a really good product person who knows how to work well with a marketing or a sales-led person. It's kind of actually what I'm going through right now. So I work at Ancestry, and Ancestry, a lot of people know of the company because it has a really great brand. You see the marketing ads everywhere here. But yeah, product-led growth, it's become more of like a second priority for the company, and now it's going to become a bigger priority for the company. And so you need to build that bridge between product and marketing. You really need to have a close relationship with them, because like at the end of the day, you're not going to be just solely product-led growth. It's going to be always be a balance. So the first thing you'll need to do is get a very strong product person into your company, and ensure that that person knows how to build relationships, or at least have the experience working closely with marketing or sales.
Yeah, and you know, a perfect example, I've seen this is Vidyard. I don't know how many people have heard of Vidyard here, but they were a video marketing platform that was predominantly enterprise, sold via the enterprise, B2B, top down. And then a few years ago, Michael Litt, the CEO and the team, they made a decision that they want to do something product-led. So they took a sliver of the product, like a feature that was high value, wasn't like just like a BS feature, but a high value, which was like a video recording feature where people could just record, and they would record videos and share it with each other, right? Screen recording. And they offered that as a free feature. And they put a lot of effort. They put a dedicated team. They needed a product-led growth person. They needed people who understood freemium, self-service. And they built this feature, which was a small sliver of the overall product. And they pushed it out there. And today they got millions of users for that product. And it's become like the biggest driver of leads, because people sign up for the screen recording feature, and then sort of they go through that journey and then eventually become product qualified leads for the whole Vidyard product. And that was very fascinating. And if you look at HubSpot, also in the early days, they launched a number of sort of features like that. Their HubSpot CRM is free, for example. They've got like signature tools, and they got like and they got things like marketing grader, where you can grade your marketing and whatnot. And so you go through this journey, you're using it, and then they level you up. I
want to touch upon that just a little bit, just one other point. A really simple way you can think about it is, let's say you're a sales team or you have a big operations team. What is like your current process? And then just productize that. And when you start to productize that, and then you turn everything into a funnel, and you try to optimize each part of the funnel, you are slowly becoming a product-led growth company. So just try to think about like your process right now, and then productize it. And then that's like your first step into becoming product-led growth company.
What is one example of that? Maybe give us a specific example of how somebody should think about it, maybe a department or whatnot.
Yeah. So my previous company is called LME. So what we did was we offer in-home service to families with autistic children, okay? Because getting therapists for autistic kids is actually really hard, because there aren't a lot of therapists out there. And so the waiting time can be like 18 months. All right, so we started a business that we will try to find therapists for you. And the way that the company started just like a year ago, and so there was no product whatsoever. And so the company was really operations led. There were so many operations processes. Like we had to get 10 documents from a family. We need to make sure that the family fill out each form. We need to make sure that the form is filled out correctly. We need to make sure that they match with their therapist. So there was just so many operational processes. And so what we did was basically like did a user map journey of all of the requirements, turned that into a product. And then once it was a product, then we would optimize each step of the funnel. So like, all right, first of all, we need to get users into our website. Second, we need to show the documents, all the 10 documents that they need to fill out. Maybe we show it to them one by one rather than 10, because the drop-offs will be much higher. So just very simple thing, put your current operational process into a user journey and then productize that. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And folks, if you have any questions, type them in the chat, or maybe there's a certain sort of use case or something you want us to comment on or get feedback on, please type it. So, we talked about how startups should think about building products as they go from like, idea, validate the market, to product market fit, and then potentially hyper growth. But in your opinion, what does growth look like at different stages of the company? How should companies think about this growth function and moreover product-led growth function? What have you seen?
Yeah, when you're a seed company, you're really just trying to validate your value prop, right? If you've listened to Brian Chesky's podcast years ago, it's like, do something that's not scalable, right? Just like try to really understand what the value prop that is sticking for your customer, and do everything that you can for that customer. Don't do things that scale. And then once you finally are seeing like what the value prop is and there's becoming a process around it, that's really when you can become from more of a seed company to a Series A. Series A, you need to have like your initial customer base. Like you can prove to VCs that there is something here, right? That this isn't just a product just for one customer, but this is a product for potentially many customers based on the initial evidence that you have. And then Series B is when you're doubling down on some of the levers that you're seeing that you could pull into. But really that Series C to Series A to Series B, that's really the most difficult to like try to figure out. And then Series B and beyond, it's just you already know what your key levers are and you're just like doubling down in investments and then adding more levers. But C to Series A to Series B, you're trying to just like learn so much. And it could be like a really slow process. Like C to Series A, that can be a really, really, really long process. Yeah.
Awesome. Now let's dive into frameworks here. What do you see as the top product-led growth frameworks and tactics driving growth in 2022 and into the future? And we'll drill in from there.
Yeah, there are a lot of frameworks out there. Okay, so there are a lot of like growth frameworks that you will see online, and those are great. But there are a couple of frameworks that have worked well in the past over the years, and even today I still continue to use those frameworks. Number one is breaking down problems. Okay, one of the co-founders of Opencare like 5 years ago always says like everything is a funnel, you guys. Everything is a funnel. So always break down the problem. So let's say you want to increase the percentage of users from free trials to paid subscribers. We'll break down the problem. Either like breaking it down into a funnel, just breaking it down so you can understand what the key inputs are in order to improve that output. So like if you tell your team that, hey, we need to improve revenue by $5 million, they won't really know what it means. And so you as a growth leader, your goal is to break down that problem. So you have revenue, all right, well, what does revenue stand for? So there's the free trials times the conversion rate. Okay, we can break that problem even more. Free trials, how many people are coming to the website? What percentage of people are becoming free trialers? All right, and then what's the conversion rate to paid? Just keep breaking down the problem until you have all of the key inputs, and then you can see like which input you can optimize in order to increase that main output, which is revenue. So always break down the problem. I think that's a framework that will never get old, is that if you understand the problem really quickly, you will get to the solution. Like a lot of people talk about growth, they think about, oh, give me ideas, like give me inspiration for more ideas, but first you really need to try to understand the problem. And then the second part, the second framework that I'll share is called the opportunity solution tree. So this will help you out when it comes to ideation. So if you're a person who have a really, really hard time with brainstorming ideas, use this framework, which is the opportunity solution tree. You can actually find it online. There is a great article about it. Basically what it is that, let's say you have a problem, right? The problem is you want to increase the percentage of free trialers into paid subscribers. All of a sudden, you and your team have the tendency to brainstorm ideas, right? You're brainstorming a bunch of ideas, but what is missing is the opportunity, which is the customer problem. So if you think about it from like a tree, so there is the goal, you're trying to improve the percentage of people from free trialers to paid subscribers, and then you have the ideas. Well, now you need to make sure that the customer needs, the customer problems are actually in the middle. And so your idea should improve the biggest customer problem rather than like the idea trying to improve the output directly. Does that make sense, Lloyd? Like, do you want me to clarify that a bit more? Yeah.
I think
Oh, I think you're
give us like a concrete example of
Yeah.
this in use. Maybe some scenario you encountered.
Yeah, so let me give an example. So landing pages, all right? I know a lot of people here know about landing pages. So you have a Facebook ad, you click on the Facebook ad, you'll end up on a landing page. And let's say your landing page conversion rate is like 10%, and you want to improve that 10% number to 15%, okay? The tendency for all of us, including myself, is to now brainstorm a bunch of ideas on how we can improve the conversion rate from 10 to 15%, right? But the one thing that you'll need to do first is really try to understand the customer problems. The customer problems could be they don't trust your brand, they haven't heard of you, all right? Or second is that they don't understand your product, or like there can be a number of customer problems. So you need to list out what those customer problems are, and then you prioritize which ones, and then you think about the ideas. So like, for example, if the customer does not know your brand or does not trust you, then your idea should be like putting customer reviews, putting in testimonials, putting in like like for example, BBB, it will give you more authority of like what your brand is, right? If people don't understand what your product is, that's a different set of ideas. It can be, showing a video of how your product works. So just making sure that you really understand what the customer problems and needs are, and you prioritize them, and then you think about ideas for that customer problem. So don't jump directly from, we need to improve landing page conversion rate from 10 to 15% to ideas, because you may be missing that middle piece. Is that clear, Lloyd? Yeah.
Definitely. And that's the thing, right? Like, customers are looking for an outcome. They're not looking for software. So you got to think about it in terms of the customer outcome and the opportunity. And David here is a regular community member, shared some links on the opportunity solution tree. But Nomi asks here, what's the best way to find out what the customer problem is when trying to improve those conversion rates?
Yeah, that's a really good, really good question. There are a couple of ways. Number one is obviously user research. And then second, maybe you can even have like a pop-up survey on, let's say, the landing page, which is our example. But user research is going to play a big part. If you have a user research team right now, I would say really try to put yourself into that team and try to understand like what all the user research methods are, so that you also can have the independence to do the interviews yourself. Because like once you can do the interviews yourself as well, you can have like a better understanding of the customer, and you can like better interview them and really like pinpoint what exactly the customer problems are. But doing a lot of user research, I can give you like more ideas here. So I remember when I was at a startup, yeah, we would do the user interviews ourselves. You don't need a lot. I think you would just need about 7, max 10, because over time you're going to hear like the same problems. And then another thing that we would do is that if there are too many customer problems and we really want to prioritize, then we send out a survey. So I remember for referrals at Opencare, we did so many user interviews. We have a really clear idea of what the customer problems were, but we would send out surveys on like a monthly basis just to gut check what our customer problem priorities are. Yeah.
And so what are some examples of a great customer interview? Give me maybe a mock, like some samples, maybe use at Opencare in the past. Like, I think this is perfect. You're trying to figure out how to improve the referral flow. What are some questions you asked to nail down the problem?
Yeah, there's going to be a number of research methods that you're going to have to do. Number one is, first of all, you need just to try to understand the user journey. So a very, very general user interview, get users through the user journey, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. And then after that, you'll probably have a really good idea of like where the key drop-offs are. And then you can go deeper into that one specific problem in the flow, and then really try to solve for it. So like, for example, with referrals, the biggest problem with referrals is that people don't know who to refer, right? And so when we did a lot of user interviews, the user journey looks good until they get to like a prompt. It's like, hey, refer a friend. They're like, I don't know who to refer. Like, yeah, I really have no clue who to refer. So like, for example, at Lyft, it was the exact same thing. It's like, I don't know who to refer. Everyone I know already has a Lyft account, right? There's already a perception there. Lyft is already big. I don't know who else to refer. And so you get deeper into the problem. And so this is also where like data analytics will come in handy. It's like, well, what are the people, who are the people that people are referring? So who are the referees? And so like at Lyft, what we found out was that the people that they're most likely to refer are those that they are drinking with on a Saturday night. And so we would send out all of our referral emails on a Saturday night at 8 p.m. because if they're having a drink with a friend and the friend needs to get home, then that's like a perfect time that they would give a referral code. And so when you do all of that research and then dig into like the main user problem based on those like user interviews, then that's where you can get those actionable insights from. Yeah.
I want to add a few points here. I'm a big advocate of this. And it's funny because I've been a part of a few venture-backed companies and then mine, and I've been on the founding team of 3 now. And I always sort of start with user interviews. As a founder, my mindset's been at the cusp of growth, sales,
Yep.
and product. And so I always ask, like, I try to nail down the ideal customer profile. And then,
Exactly.
and then, maybe I'll do like, I'll pick 2 segments, like let's say customer service leaders in large enterprises in the traditional industry and customer service agents in tech. And then like, what is the market size? What do you think is the propensity to pay and ease of access? And then I'll interview them, basically trying to understand a day in their life. Like, have you ever been in a situation where XYZ happened? How do you solve that? Like, and there are some sales tactics also in sales, like spin selling, right? You ask situation questions, then problem questions, and ask them what is the implication of those problems, and then there is this need payoff. But in the perfect world, if you had a magic wand, how do you see this kind of working? And that's worked phenomenally well for me. David just shared a link from Microsoft as well, and I think if you do that for each feature, it's really interesting, because then you can see sort of the user journey and then also the end-to-end user flow, and what are the manual steps. What do you remove from it to deliver the fastest, most sort of delightful outcome? So you mentioned about breaking things down into problem, right? Like, and so if you look at it, customer acquisition and growth is really about get people to your site, get them to try it out, right? Get people to your site, get them to sign up and onboard them. Make sure anytime they have the problem, they keep coming back, and then make sure they refer you people. So let's break that down. How do you create a unique hook that pulls users into your product and establishes that initial momentum?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things to think about when it comes to hook. One is on the marketing side, and then one on the product side. For the marketing side, yeah, you really need to have an understanding of like what the key value prop is, and then sell that. That is really, really, really hard to do. Okay. And so this is why you see a lot of people giving out offers. So whether it's like gift cards or discounts, like us at Lyft, right? Like you would receive discounts if you create an account on Lyft. It's really hard. So even if like the value prop is really clear, there sometimes you need to add more juice into that hook and to get people to convert. So that's on the marketing side. On the product side, this is where onboarding becomes really, really important. You need to make sure that your hook is delivered quite quickly. So in onboarding, this is something I've been focused on for a long time, including now here at Ancestry, is that you can work on onboarding for years, right? Like I know several really large companies, I know their VPs of growth, and they just focus on onboarding for years, because trying to connect what that marketing hook is to actually delivering it into your product can be solved in so many ways and can always be like optimized. But I think like the main thing with onboarding is just really try to find out like one valuable thing. I know people call it the aha moment, but it's still like, it's such a large term. Just think of it as like, what is the most valuable thing that you can give to the customer in your product and get them to get there as fast as you can. Just always think about that. What is it? Like for Ancestry, for us, like that valuable thing is like, what is the most valuable record that we can show to people about their families, right? We have a bunch of records at Ancestry, but what is the most valuable thing? We want to make sure that that is the first thing that they see first. And so how can we get that user to that really quickly? And so that can be really, really hard. And yeah, there's so much room for improvement when it comes to onboarding. It can take years to really find like the most optimal onboarding flow. Yeah.
Some things are you can force also, right? Like with customer success, you see there's like contrasting examples here. Superhuman just raised a $1 billion valuation. They've been going since 2014. But when I had Rahul on here, he says they manually onboard everyone. They have an onboarding CS call with everyone for a $30 a month product. And it works really well, because that's just to say that your onboarding really is the gateway to your house, right? I sign up for your product is like you get invited to your house to a party, and I show up to the party and there's nobody to greet me. I gotta jump through garbage to get to the bar. Whereas I come in and the host greets me and introduces me to the bar, pours me a drink. So that's like akin to your onboarding. Onboarding is the biggest driver of retention or somebody coming back again. But like at Opencare, let's go into like Opencare or Lyft. What were those hooks that got people to come in the first time? And what were some things you guys did that got people to keep coming back, onboarded and keep? Like, how did you know that, okay, this person signed up and this person, because they completed XYZ actions, are more likely to keep coming back?
So what is the hook, or like what is the main thing to keep people coming back?
Both. So what was the initial hook, and then how did you figure out what were the things that kept people coming?
Yeah, at Lyft, I know a lot of folks here know about Lyft more than Opencare. So at Lyft, yeah, we had a lot of discounts. The value prop is really, really clear. I think that's the best part about Lyft is the value prop is really clear, but in order to get people to try it as soon as possible, we had a lot of discounts. And so that's why you'll see a lot of that. But another tactic that we did was it's a typical marketing thing. You want to make sure that you catch people at the right place at the right time, right? So like, for example, like with referrals, we knew that people who are drinking on a Saturday at 8 a.m., they're more likely to need a Lyft. And so we would try to find mediums through which we can capture those people drinking on a Saturday at 8 a.m., right? Or we're also trying to capture people who are at an airport, right? They just landed. How can we make sure that we show Lyft to them because we know they need a car? Or before they get to, or before their flight, how can we find out whether or not the user is about to go to the airport, and how can we make sure that we show our Lyft ads to them? So there's like, there are the discounts, of course, there are like those tactics that can get people hooked, but also like trying to find people at the right place, the right time. That's not easy to execute. That can be like really hard. But those are some of the things that you can do. So that's the one. And I can't remember the second question, Lloyd. Yeah.
Yeah, but the second question is, what are some leading indicators of retention, and how did you sort of figure out that if we have these things in the product, people will keep coming back?
Yeah. The best retention always goes back to really great onboarding. So it's going back to what we just talked about, which is you really, really need to have the best onboarding, because that will give you all of the indications on like whether or not someone will retain well. In trying to figure out like which product features will actually improve retention rate, that'll be really hard. The number one thing you need to do is first you need to try to show like what is the most valuable thing for the customer, and then second is like test out a bunch of features and then pushing them to that direction. But yeah, if you don't have the first part right, if the user does not yeah, this is not seeing like the most valuable thing in the beginning, then, forget about all of the features, just to make sure that get that one feature right, get that one valuable thing right, and then you can start to expand to other product features. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I got a question here from Luke. Can you include some suggestions for a product that is not monetized? And maybe Luke, just describe your example for us, and so we can tackle that. So Avery asks here, I love that Lyft enabled the future scheduling now. Does that help drive more usage?
Oh, scheduling now. Unfortunately, I'm not part of that team. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know that answer. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So a couple of things here that I want to dive into, right? I think all these examples are fairly universal, right? Like the whole principle is B2B or B2C, but like it's applying those principles of freemium and consumerization of technology to put the power in the user's hands. So the principles we've learned from years of B2C, bringing that to B2B, right? So a lot of things you can learn there. I would also recommend people read the book Hooked by Nir Eyal. It's a fantastic book. So, you've onboarded the person, you've created this initial value. How do you keep users engaged and addicted to your product to keep coming back? What are some lessons you've learned there?
There's some things that we're trying right now is one that we're doing here at Ancestry, which is we understand our biggest value of the product, which are records, right? People come into our website to try to find more about their families, right? So they see historical records. And so that's the main value. So one, when it comes to onboarding, make sure that they see the most valuable record. But and then number two, how to keep them hooked is to make sure that you pace all of those like records, right? And then you use different types of mediums like notifications to get people back. It's I think the hardest part really of all of this is really just trying to understand what is like the most valuable thing and how you can show it over and over and over and over again, right? Like with Facebook and Instagram, the most valuable thing is like photos of families. And so you can show that in the newsfeed, and then you can show notifications to get people back, but that is not the same with every product, right? That is not the same with every product. Like for us at Ancestry, it is a bit simpler just because we have a lot of records, we can paste them, and then we can get people back. But for your product, I would push, what is that most valuable thing? And then do you have enough of it to get people back? I think that's going to be the trickiest part of all. But to get people back, there are a number of tactics that you can do with notifications and a bunch of like growth tactics to keep people into the product. But yeah, it's going to be the hardest part for any founder, for any product person, is that valuable thing. Do you have enough of it to get people back? Yeah.
I think one of the key things is it's sort of like a must-have thing. Like I needed to do my job, hence I need to log in to move to the next thing, versus a nice-to-have feature. It's like a must-have kind of thing, right? So that forces them to log in. Now, you're an expert at referrals. You figured this quite well. Walk us through how people should think about referrals and leveraging referrals to becoming a source of repeatable organic growth. Like how should people implement this? Because it's not as simple as saying, you know what, I'm gonna just ask people to share. Nobody shares, right? Like how do you motivate them and incentivize them to share?
Yeah. So the first thing with referrals, kind of like what we talked about when it comes to frameworks, is break down referrals. Referrals is actually really simple. It's a very simple funnel. All right. There's the people who are seeing a referral prompt, people who are actually sharing it with their friends, and then their friends clicking on that text message or that Facebook post, and then the people converting. So it's actually a really, really simple funnel. And so you can break down the problem really easily. There are some big things that you can do to really hyper growth referrals. Number one is just get more people to see your referrals prompt. It's actually really that simple. So I'll give you an example. At Opencare, originally only about 20% of people would see a referrals prompt. We made that 100%. So when you get into our product, that is the first thing that you would see is a referrals prompt. And so just by improving like the number of people seeing a referrals prompt, that would increase your conversion quite a bit. And then second is once you have that key entry point, show it everywhere. So at Lyft, like we literally showed referrals prompt everywhere. So you saw it as a new user. So you created your account, you saw the referrals prompt. Before your first ride, you saw a referrals prompt. During your ride, you saw a referrals prompt. Even after you you give your tip, you see a referrals prompt. And then you would see emails about referrals on a Saturday. Like as much as possible that makes sense for the customer experience, just show it over and over and over again in as many places as you can. That is going to be like the biggest strategical move for referrals that would hyper growth your referral numbers. And then second is just really making it easier for users to share. So there are a number of things that you could do here. One is what I already talked about earlier. People not knowing who to share. Now you got to give them hints. So like at Opencare, we found out that the people who the referees are more likely to be someone's partner. And so instead of saying refer a friend, we would say refer your partner. And then in the email text field, we would say like put your partner's email address here. Like give them that hint. So remove any like cognitive overload from a user's mind. And then also just, yeah, making it really easy to share. There's so many tactics there that I can give, but just make sure to just try to remove as much friction as possible. But yeah, I can give more examples there. Yeah.
Let's look at a couple more examples. What are you doing at Ancestry? Maybe I'm really curious with referrals, right? Because the thing is the hardest nut to crack, because let's say you've got to 1 million ARR and you have high retention. One thing is figured, you have product market fit, people like it, people are coming back, you have a high retention. But then building referenceability or referrals is like the hardest thing to do. What are some other ideas you may have that we can leverage?
Yeah, like once you have the prompts, so like all of the key entry points, like what I talked about, it's like you prompt the user to refer. Now show it everywhere in your product, show it in all of your email, show it in like your SMS and your push notification, show it everywhere. The next key thing is improving that messaging, right? Whether it's giving out discounts, it's like, hey, refer a friend and you get $100. Okay, so discounts, there's a lot of things that you can do there. I think that will take you like a few months to really try to figure out like what is the most optimal thing. So I'll give you one example. So with referrals, a lot of people see, hey, refer a friend and you get $100. That actually doesn't convert as best. If you say like refer a friend and the friend gets $100, that will convert better, because from a user psychology perspective, it's like, oh, okay, I'm actually giving someone something, and it won't be awkward for me to tell that person I'm actually getting something out of it by referring them. And so you can play with all of that. So when it comes to like discounts and offers, you can play on the messaging. It's like, who is going to get which money? Is there like tiers of offer amounts? But that's really going to be the key main thing. Like once you get the hook, you need to think about the messaging, and then you need to think about the offers, and then you think about how the offer is structured. All of that that can definitely improve your referral numbers.
Really fantastic. So some questions here. Do you want people to share on social and in private more? My instinct is private shares are more worthwhile. So I'll tell you what's worked for me actually. Email is the biggest driver of conversions. The social sharing is very hard. Texts sometimes works, but email has been a big driver. I don't know what you've seen, Maria.
100% email. Email, SMS. I would say forget about social, unless your product is very social, but I haven't had that experience. So I would bet you that only about 3 to 5% of people actually share on Facebook. And then when you look deeper at those people, the people that they refer, they actually drop off in conversion rate once they get to the landing page. Okay, I would bet you because I've seen this so many times. It's like, yeah, only about 5% of referrers refer on social media, and then when you dig deeper into the numbers, the percentage of people actually like clicking on the Facebook post will be a lot, will be like 10 times, 20 times the number, but and then when they get to the landing page, conversion rate would be like 1%. And so you actually won't see a big lift when you try to get people to share on social media. Yeah, I spent like almost 2 to 3 months really trying to push on how people can share more on social media and get those referrees to convert. Nothing was working. That was really hard. And so I agree with Lloyd, focus on email, focus on SMS, but yeah, focus a lot on email. That is the highest converting channel.
And then Lauren asks here, what are some unexpected, actually before Lauren, Luke also asks, if you incentivize referrals, does it undermine your product's ability to optimize non-incentivized referrals? So what I've seen worked is you don't always have to incentivize with money. Like, PayPal did the bi-directional referral where a two-sided reward where if you get somebody to sign up, they get money and then you get money too. Dropbox also implemented that, but a lot of people now do like gift cards, or they also give you like a discount on the service, right? So what are your thoughts on there? Like on Luke's question here, undermining product's ability?
Yes, as much as possible. Yeah, don't get hooked into incentives, because yeah, you are just going to be hooked and you are undermining the product. But just from more from like a reasoning perspective, that is really, really hard to do if you don't do incentives. Once you try it out and you see that your numbers increase, it's really hard to pull away from that. I mean, yeah, if you can continue to grow without incentives, of course you can, but just from a rational perspective, it's really hard to do. Yeah.
I always look at it from 2 points: customer acquisition cost and conversion, right? So let's say you have your product led versus sales led. You have a sales team now, they got a call, you got to pay that person commission and all of that. Like, look at the CAC over there and the conversion rate, and then compare it with like incentivized referrals. Chances are, if I really like a product and I refer it to 2 of my friends and they sign up, your CAC is low. And of course you paid me significantly less, even if you incentivize me, than you would pay your salesperson. And because I've used your product and I'm recommending 2 friends, my conversion via me is going to be much higher than your sales team cold calling somebody and going through a process. So there's a little bit of that, right? Like, as a founder, you got to figure out optimize for conversion rate and low CAC, right? So that's one way. And then, like Luke asked, like forwarding emails to their network. I've seen other products where they actually tap into your address book and could recommend, based on some social graph, who are the most relevant people you should refer this product to. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I have, and we tried it at Lyft. That is really hard from a technical perspective. I don't want to discourage people from doing it, but yeah, from a technical perspective, that can be really, really hard. So just note. In terms of like forwarding emails, that is actually something that I tested as well. So like for referrals, we would send you an email. It's like, refer a friend, right? And instead of having the call to action to get to the product and then refer someone, we actually had the call to action is like, forward this to a person, forward this to a partner, forward this to a colleague. That in itself can convert pretty well. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, none of this is done in isolation, right? You need a team. So 2 things I want to take. One is assembling your growth team as we close out to the top of the hour. And the second is, what are tools, right? We'll take the tools at the end, because everyone wants to know what's in Maria's tool stack. Everyone wants to know what's in everyone's tool stack. But let's take with assembling the team. You're a startup at the seed stage. You just got to product market fit, and from product market fit to hyper growth. In what order do you build your growth team? Who needs to be on it, etc.?
Yeah. The first thing, you really need to have a strong IC as your first product-led growth person.
And IC
yeah,
means, folks, individual contributor. What are the skill sets of that IC?
Yeah. So number one, for any growth person, they need to be extremely data-driven. Like, if possible, this person needs to be independent. So I'm going to give you a unicorn person, okay? If you can find this person, magnificent. Number one, the person needs to be very independent, okay? Someone who is extremely data-driven, can pull their own numbers, can analyze numbers, and can sell like what the problems are and like what the goals are, all right? And then number two, can also be independent doing all the other things, can be independent in terms of like doing the user research, maybe even sometimes designing the experiment themselves. Yeah, you don't need someone who's also an engineer, but someone who can work really closely with an engineer and really like push the boundaries of what can and cannot, but basically someone who can basically do everything. So when you think of a product team, they have so many dependencies, right? Like you have an analytics person, you have a user, like a UX research, you have design, you have all of these other dependencies. If you can find someone who can do a pretty good job of all of those things, that is like your most ideal person. Because for product-led growth, you know, they're really pushing the boundaries of what can and cannot happen. And so you try to find that person. But number one is that person needs to be really good with data. Yeah, preferably they can pull the numbers themselves as well. But that's really like the main thing. So seed, series B is when you start to think more of like, can this person hire and really start to scale the team, right? Because that person will focus first on like one specific channel. So let's say they're focusing on onboarding, and then eventually you'll start to see a lot of opportunities in retention or monetization. You know, they can't do everything. And so that's when you'll need to start expanding your team. But any questions on who to look for like your first growth person?
No, I think that is good. You covered it clearly. Someone who's data driven, like a Swiss Army knife, can probably fly solo.
The other thing that not a lot of people touch upon when it comes to growth is not from a hard skill standpoint, but that person, it would be great if that person is so competitive, competitive with themselves, right? Always trying to want to improve the numbers and really have that internal motivation to just always go after increasing the numbers. That's actually like really hard to find, because with growth, you're almost like trying to hire for athletes, because they're always trying to go after how to improve a conversion rate, and you need to find that internal motivation in someone. And yeah, that's really something to think about, is like, can you find that person? We have that internal motivation, almost like even so competitive that they're always just wanting to improve the numbers. Yeah.
Definitely. And then as you scale the team, now that you have a team, who are some people that you brought on your team? They're all channel specific sort of leaders and ICs, basically.
Yeah. So they're focused on like one part of the business. I mean, yeah, one part of the growth team. So usually growth teams are divided by acquisition, retention, and then monetization. We're focused a lot right now on the acquisition side. We're eventually going to expand to retention. And so you would want someone to be focused on those individual things. But also, if you have more junior folks, getting them to focus on like one little thing, like mobile web optimization, right? That's really great. And yeah, so you don't need to just have someone so focused on like one channel, but you can also get someone to think about the horizontal improvements. So not just vertical improvements on like one thing, but the horizontal improvements, like mobile web optimization. You can get like probably someone a bit more junior to just like focus on that. You can think about that as well. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. And I think that's a good way to look at it. When you're starting out, you're optimizing for many things. And like you said in the start, right? Like you acquire customers, you onboard them, you retain them, you get them to refer, you get them to pay. And basically where you're seeing volume, like, okay, now I'm acquiring 1,000 people a day are hitting my site, but none of them are signing up. I have a sign up problem. Let me figure out how to optimize the landing page. Well, they're signing up, but nobody's going through the onboarding flow. There's something wrong there. To eventually you're at scale and you're like, okay, I have a team for onboarding. I have a team for acquisition, retention, etc. So what are some top levers you're seeing on the acquisition side? Because that's the hardest, getting eyeballs.
Getting eyeballs. Sorry, on the marketing side?
Or, you said you have a team managing acquisition now. What are they focused on?
Oh, sorry, I mean onboarding. Yeah. We talked so much about onboarding, but onboarding is something that we're going to be focusing on for years. And if you look at other companies, that's exactly the same thing. Like they optimize on onboarding for years. So that's
definitely. And then your acquisition starts with marketing? Or
no, that is a separate team. But yeah, that's a really good question. Here at Ancestry, like the people doing the ads and then getting them to the landing page, that's a marketing team, and then product. But in other companies, a growth team can also own growth marketing, which is the team that it's doing the ads. But here at Ancestry, we don't do that. But in other startups, you may see growth also taking over growth marketing.
Yeah, because growth marketing can be ads, it can be SEO, it can be programmatic emails, and a whole bunch of different things. Awesome. Yep. What's in your tool stack in rapid fire, or rather, actually, as a VC, and then as a leader at a few startups, all the way from Opencare to Lyft and sort of Ancestry, which are much larger. What do you recommend? What's the most economic tool set that people should have in their growth arsenal? What are some tools of the trade?
That's a great question. Yeah, so we don't have a lot of time. So let's talk about data analytics tool set. I've seen Looker. I've seen, hey, what's that product analytics tool, Lloyd? The one that's like quite popular right now. I can't remember the name of it.
Pendo.
Pendo? No, there was something else. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that, Amplitude, there we go. Yeah, so I'm seeing, like Amplitude. One thing is, do try to encourage your team to learn SQL so that they can be a lot more independent when it comes to data analysis. And like the tool set for that is like Periscope, Mode Analytics. So if you have a pretty good team and you really encourage them to learn SQL, have those tools available. Because for me, it is frustrating when I don't have the tool set to like query SQL. It's tough. And so I would encourage that for your guys' team. So do think of like the tools that don't require SQL, like Amplitude and Looker and all of that. But also do consider the ones that that can allow your team to run queries on SQL, because it will make them much more impactful. Yeah.
And then Pendo has a great set of tools if you don't have the dev team to build like better functionality for onboarding and slicing some of that data to present different things. And then the last question here is product experiment prioritization. Is there a framework that you use? Like, how do you know what to work on, like growth experiments wise?
Growth experiment wise,
or like, what do you spend, like basically how do you prioritize what is the growth team going to work on activities wise 1 week or the other? Growth activities.
Nothing special. We do the ICE framework just like everyone else. Impact, confidence, effort.
Yeah, definitely. So for others or people here who don't know, ICE or the extended RICE is a very popular product framework. R stands for reach, I stands for impact, C confidence, and E is basically how many people it's going to reach, what do you think the impact is going to be, how confident you are, and how easy or hard it is to do. And honestly, use RICE, you said, in everything you do across your company, how you prioritize your company's strategy to different experiments, to sales, to marketing. Because the way I think about it is, I want to know how many people it's going to reach, how it's going to reach them and how long it's going to take from an investment standpoint versus other experiments or other activities, and then prioritize based on that. And that'll bring calm to your life. Awesome. Maria, thank you so much. Had a great conversation. Hope to see you in San Francisco, or if you're visiting Austin, let's do this in person sometime. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of the week.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lloyd.